for joining me. I
Of
know
course.
this has been quite the week, I think, going back and forth and talking about
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
But man, what a time. What an absolute time to be alive. And um, I am excited to kind of go through, obviously we're going to talk about Candace. We're going to talk about just kind of our take on the entire situation, which is, yeah, has been super interesting, and you and I hadn't talked about it really prior to this week. And I think I had seen, and maybe obviously when we were talking about it, I was kind of confused. I wasn't sure how pro or against you were, which is,
Yeah.
always is fun, obviously, to get to talk regardless of where we stand on
Mhm.
different topics, if we're exactly aligned, if we're seeing things differently. But it, as usual, as we often find, we are not good at debating each other because we typically end up,
Usually on the same page.
yeah, we typically end up in the
Yeah.
same camp, or at least pretty
Yes.
close to it.
Yeah.
But I am excited to go through today, and really just, I think one of my greatest desires is that I truly hope that those who have been engaging with us on this, those who have been in favor of some of our criticisms, have been against them, whatever. I hope that everybody will just give this episode a chance, because I think there's some core messages in here that I really want to get out, that I really want to share, especially after listening to Candace most of this week. And I have some things that I'm going to say that are going to, I think, shock both sides. There's things that I want to give Candace a lot of credit for, and there's criticism I'm going to make of some of her stances or her approach, all these different things. And so I don't, intend this to be just like a Candace bashing thing. I think we have the extra curveball that neither you or I could have planned for with the whole invite and,
Yes.
TPUSA responding this week. It's funny. I've been thinking about talking about this for so long. And of course, this is the week that they
The
actually
timing, man.
engage a little bit. Yeah, which is
Yeah.
nuts. So
Yeah.
lots to unpack. But I first just want to start by, I think this is an interesting timeline. And I think it's important. I went back now. I use Wikipedia as my source for this, but it's really just going through her career timeline. So I don't, see why they would be false. And obviously, there's lots of links and sources down there, some of which I did check to just double check some of these things. But I think it's interesting to note that in interviews and things that I saw from different media outlets and things, kind of getting a better picture of her life, it actually says that she said she never cared about politics really prior to 2015. And so she really wasn't politically involved or engaged. She's 4 years older than me. So I'm 32. So she's 36 now.
Mhm.
And so still obviously really young. And in 2017, it was November of 2017, it was announced by Charlie Kirk at a TPUSA event that she was hired by Turning Point USA. And so she had gotten really popular from a video that she did. She was actually kind of critical of Trump in 2016. But prior to this, like a year before this, she was kind of like an unknown YouTuber from what I found, and was just kind of like making content, started making like political content in 2015, 2016, and then kind of goes viral for like a specific video that she starts getting interviewed on Fox News. And then it seemed like it was in the midst of like racism allegations amongst staff at TPUSA. She gets hired
Mhm.
in November of 2017. So that's interesting. It says that in October of 2018, there was I think it was a USA Today article I was reading, and it said that she admitted that she recently, like in October of 2018, that she recently admitted that she had never voted, didn't care about politics again before 2015, and had recently registered as a Republican. She actually, similar to my story, described her younger self as liberal. And so she actually said that she was liberal. May of 2019, she leaves Turning Point USA, and her show begins being streamed from or broadcasted on PragerU.
Mhm.
And so she was pretty close with Dennis Prager at the time. So she leaves TPUSA, goes to PragerU. About 2 years later, March of 2021, she joins the Daily Wire. All of us know that. Leaves PragerU for the Daily Wire. And then 3 years after that, March of 24, she leaves the Daily Wire and starts doing her own show. One of the things I think is just interesting in that is you have this kind of jumping around in her career from like platform to platform. Is that inherently bad? Absolutely not. But I do think it's interesting to note. And I
Mhm.
think that one of the more convincing things of pushback that I found is Emily and I both, we have a soft place in our heart for Alex Clark. I
Yeah.
don't know if you follow much Alex
Yep.
Clark, but
Yeah.
we used to watch Politics, dude, in our like
Mhm.
apartment in 2021. They were so funny. These like
Yeah.
10 or 11-minute videos she would do every day.
Yeah.
We thought it was so funny. Now, when she started Culture Apothecary, like I don't care about all this stuff. I
Yeah.
can't be obsessed with the latest crunchy things and like everything you
Can't
do
care
is
about them
unhealthy and
all,
bad.
right?
No, so I don't listen to her at all anymore, but I still follow
Yeah.
her on social media. But she, I think, made a really interesting point about the fact that Candace is left Turning Point USA after about a year, not even a full year, and what to me seems like she went to do her to the next like more lucrative opportunity. Obviously, like in each of those, she's kind of like upgrading, right? She's going on to like the next bigger and better thing, and then she goes off to leave to do her own thing, just like Tucker did, kind of similar time frame even.
Mhm.
And obviously, it's very lucrative to do that. Once you've like established, you've used kind of these larger brands to like establish your name, then leaving can be very lucrative. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's like her sole driver, but I do think that if you're going to come to this from a neutral perspective, you have to. What I was trying to do this week is like you have to give both sides their fair shot, and it's good to kind of look at, okay, who is the accuser, who is the defendant, right? And being able to say, okay, let's look at these stories. Alex Clark pointed out when she was being attacked or criticized by Candace, and she was quiet about it for a long time before she directly addressed it. She's like, I've been here my whole career. I also could have gone off and done my own thing or whatever. She's like, but I love TPUSA and I stayed here because of that. And now you're claiming that I don't care about Charlie when you left after
Yeah.
11 months to take the more money somewhere else. And then when somebody else offered you more money, you left and went and joined them. And then when you felt like you could make more money on your own, you had your beef with Ben Shapiro or whatever, you leave and go do your own thing. I think that's fair. I think it's a really fair pushback that should at least be a cause for thought for those who are like her ardent defenders. I think it's just important to kind of know where things are coming from. Obviously, September 10th of 2025, Charlie Kirk gets murdered. Now, Bridget, I'm curious, like, what is your kind of general thoughts on Candace Owens? Like, have you like? Can you tell me a little bit about? I want to share mine as well.
Yeah.
Like my not just her right now, but like you used to be a fan. Like, were you a fan of? I
Yeah.
know we have similar stances on shots. We'll say for little ones. Like, tell me about like, yeah, you're not you weren't a born and bred Candace Owens hater.
No, no,
Is
no.
that right?
No, I was a big fan. And I didn't really come onto her until she was a part of PragerU, so I never really like knew her in her turning point days. So I kind of Prager is where I started to know about her. And then Daily Wire is actually where I really like became a fan of hers, and I thought she did a really good job on her Shot in the Dark series. Which is maybe partially because I already agreed with like her conclusions. So I'll just go ahead and throw that as, my bias there is I already agreed with her where she was going with that.
Right.
So to me, that seemed like well researched, and that she did a good job actually fighting against like, the establishment on that topic. Because there isn't a lot of, at the time, there wasn't allowed to be a lot of pushback on that. And so I really liked her. And then honestly, I didn't, because I think people think I just like fell off when the Charlie stuff started, but it was really before that. And it wasn't even at the point where she left Daily Wire. But I just felt like there was a shift in her content to be more abrasive. And I think that that can happen when you're on such a public stage and you're constantly getting pushback and you're constantly getting like nasty comments. I've fallen into that myself where like somebody will say something kind of nasty and then I'm like, well, then in that case, I'm going to say this. And I got that feeling from her that it was like, all right, well, now in order to like fight back against this, I have to be that way too. I didn't always feel like she was like that because people will say to me like that's just her. But I didn't really get that from her until like end of Daily Wire kind of stint there. And then the whole drama with the Daily Wire, I don't know where to fall on that. I'm guessing there was fault on both sides. There usually is, when those things
Sure.
end. It was weird how public it was, and I think that's one of my criticisms now is that in the interest of transparency, she's putting everything out to the public just as food for thought. And I think that's a little bit irresponsible, actually. And I think it was with the Daily Wire leaving too, of like everyone's kind of like throwing out their little pieces of information and letting, whoever's on their side pick that up and kind of take up the charge for them. And I sort of just get the same feeling from this presentation, which is just like, I'm going to throw out all my ideas and thoughts and everything, and you guys work through it and come to your conclusions. And I don't think she's the only commentator that does that. So this isn't like just her. But that's kind of when I fell off, I guess, was like towards the end of her Daily Wire stint. I just felt like her content shifted and her personality almost shifted to be much more abrasive. And maybe she just saw a lot of really terrible things in the industry, and that is what shifted her that direction. I'm not going to pretend to know her motivations, but that was kind of when I fell off the wagon, and I just never was able to get back on. When I would try to listen to episodes, it was just like, this just feels not, um, I don't know, not well thought out, and not necessarily the way that I think. I think we should view things as Catholics from the way that Catholics should conduct themselves. That doesn't mean we always do it perfectly, but I do not get the feeling watching her that she's conducting herself the way that Catholics should in the public square. I don't know your thoughts on that, but that's the feeling that I get from her content.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's helpful. One of the things, my brief Candace Owens journey has been, I found her extremely helpful in 2020. That was certainly when I peaked with her. I loved Blexit, which she co-founded with, Officer Brandon, with Brandon Tatum. And I thought they did a lot of great work. It was super helpful for me during my kind of what I call like my political conversion,
Mm-hmm.
which really happened in kind of 2018, 2019, 2020. And she was really my like sobering voice after George Floyd died. She
Yeah.
was the one that kind of brought me back to earth to be like, wait a minute, wait a minute. There's a lot of emotional manipulation happening. We don't need to canonize him. We don't need to like embrace him as a hero. And it was genuinely helpful for me. And so that was like, for me, like she was my girl from then on out. Now I didn't listen to her a ton. Um, More like short clips or her responses to things when she'd be on the Daily Wires, the live streams and things like that. But always loved her, had a great respect for her, and really appreciated her content. Because of that, always was super excited when she became Catholic, of course, like I think we all were. Two of my biggest things were two men that she like ardently defends. One is when she came out with Kanye. It was kind of like ride or die Kanye, no matter what he did or what he said. When I think he was very clearly going through something. Like it doesn't mean we need to condemn people. I'm all for like being friends, but I think where she steps out sometimes is this again, just kind of like constantly asking questions. Like we should always question the narrative, question how people are being portrayed or whatever it is. Uh, you can do that, and that can be good, but I think you have to do it within reason, right? And so the other one for me that was actually even more offensive in a sense than Kanye West was Andrew Tate. And just like she did this kind of softball interview with him, was kind of chuckling, laughing. I believe she flew over there to Romania to like interview him and like sit with him and kind of like just hate on all the
You mean like
gayness and
you mean like in person, not a live stream?
yeah, to
Is that
Romania, not to Phoenix, but she
I'm just
flew
teasing.
there because he couldn't leave, right? So
Right. Yeah.
she goes over there and just kind of, and her husband in the past, I've seen videos of him like saying they grew up. He knew him like back in the day. He calls him a friend. And I just think this is sometimes my thing with Tucker too, is there's like this almost in this rejection of Israel, which I think, a lot of us are into, like, why do we give them so much money? Why
Mhm.
do we consider them this great ally? Why
Mhm.
do so many Christians in America think that that's like the same Israel that's being talked about in the Bible? That's very clearly not the case. At the same time, I am extremely concerned about Islam and not like super pro Islamic countries. I'm not pro, yeah, some of them might be clean or have structure, but like there's a lot of problems there as well. I don't think that, we can be silent about the things that Palestine also did to instigate this war and the atrocities and things they constantly do. So I think you can have both sides of that, but there kind of seems to be this like softness on certain things for the sake of like making one argument feel stronger. And so for me, one of the big things was like the Andrew Tate stuff I really didn't like. And
Mhm.
then I honestly just didn't really think about it for a while. Like, didn't really care. She's doing her own thing, whatever. I
Yeah.
don't really like her style. I didn't listen to her in the first place. But this obviously is like resurfaced everything and kind of brought her back to the main stage, which I think is really important. Now, one of the key things I think here is when Charlie Kirk was murdered. Like, if you think back to like a week or two after he was killed, it was a moment like we had never experienced before. Like the unity, the bringing together, because he really was the great unifier. I mean,
Mhm.
even he was so good um, at least politically. I know as Catholics, we sometimes take issue with this, kind of like, should we embrace Dave Rubin as conservative? Should we embrace, these people who are clearly, not in line with us on LGBT or some of these other things that, our faith really obviously says are wrong. And you have this balance of politics and faith and those sorts of things. And you have some like really diehard Catholics that are like, no, we need like a Catholic theocracy, and others who are like, well, let's keep fighting the war, and you can kind of like figure it out over time. And um, that obviously has like totally gone away now. And I think that the one person who has really dissipated that or been in the charge of kind of breaking that up has been Candace Owens. Now, does that mean that she's wrong? No. And I'm open. Again, I tried to come into videos this week with an openness to say, like, maybe she's right. And if she is right, then I think it's really important. But I think that I've kind of found that people, and you've probably seen this as well. I'd be curious if you'd add a category to this. I feel like there's four kind of main categories of people. People who think she's insane. Like there's, a number of conservatives who think she's just like belongs in an insane asylum. Like she's totally lost her mind, like Tim Pool stated recently. People who think she's asking good questions, but like she's overstepping here and there. Like
Mhm.
she's asking good questions, she's doing good work, but like, yeah, are there some problems with it? Yes. Number three, I would say, is people who believe she's good and right, and like uh, fairly concerning sometimes, right? So it's kind of this step up of like not just I think she's asking good questions and we need like skeptical people, but kind of this step up of like I do actually believe her. Like I think she's right. I think Turning Point USA did it, or it's at least like extremely suspicious.
Mhm.
Um, but I also kind of have some problems. So it's kind of the step up from like, yeah, I think she's in pursuit of the truth to she's right. She has the truth. And but she still like sometimes can be a little off or odd. And then the top one I would say is just like the rabid fans. Like she, I think at this point has like her own Groyper army, like the Nick Fuentes. Like you say anything bad about her on the internet, and you're swarmed with just reactions and comments and things like that. And it's been amazing to see how many people have just been like totally caught up in that and
Mhm.
encapsulated in that. But yeah, I want to bring it up to you first. Like now, let's you listen to some videos this week. What was
Yeah.
kind of your general thoughts or reaction to listening?
Yes, I think your categories are pretty much spot on. And I would probably categorize myself in the like second from the bottom where like I think it's good to ask questions. I think there's a misunderstanding from the rabid fans that if you don't like her, you don't want to ask questions or you trust the FBI. And it's like, well, I think you can do both, right? Like I can think that Candace is
Hmm.
over the top and also think the FBI is probably lying to us. Like I think we can think both of those things. So I am glad that someone's asking questions. I'm going to take us on like a tiny tangent here, which is that I keep thinking about Thomas Aquinas. His definition of truth is the adequation of the intellect to reality. And I think that intellect and reality are two things that we have a major struggle with in our modern day society. Like both of those things are on a major struggle bus. And so when I see all this conversation about searching for truth, I'm not even sure that we actually know what that is anymore. Um, because I'm not sure we have like the intellect or the vision of reality to where we can actually like put those things together to the truth. And so instead that speaks to what you were talking about before of you pick a side and that's your side. And then you have to make excuses for that side, completely be on that side because if you don't, you have to question your own judgment. And so we've kind of come to this like age of information world where like, okay, I'm on Candace's side. Everything she says is excusable or right because of this. Oh, and there's turning point people like that too, right? Whatever turning point says,
Hmm.
there's an excuse for it. And I think just we could use that same thing with Israel Gaza, right? Like you've picked a side. Now you're either like you're all in on one or the other. Um, and we're not allowed to really use our God-given intellect and take a look at reality. It's hard to see reality anymore. We're all living online. And so it's very difficult to like just get out in the real world and see it. And if you go back 50 years, nobody knows what's going on in Israel, Gaza at all. Right. And so we've got all this information coming at us. And so the way that a lot of us deal with that, I think, is pick a person and go with that person to the end. So that's
Yep,
kind of
ride
my
that
like
journey.
that, yeah, and that's like kind of my little like tangent there of just like I get where people are coming from where it's like so overwhelming that you just want to pick a side and you kind of like want to go that direction whether or not everything they say is accurate. Um that being said, I think your question was like listening to her podcast with an open mind and just kind of getting what you get from them. And so what I would say is I do think she's asking legitimate questions. I don't know if turning point is where to ask those questions. It seems like she's directing a lot of those questions at them, which in turn makes them sound like the guilty party, right? So, what if she's right about these Egyptian planes being involved? Okay, fair question. but she's saying like Turning Point knew about those Egyptian planes. And so my question is like, are you asking the questions of the right people? It sounds like you have an end in mind already. Does that make sense? The way that she's
Yes.
asking questions lead to a conclusion. Um, and so no, maybe she's not making strict accusations, but she's leading you to that conclusion that she has in her mind, right? And she was pretty clear. Like, so I listened to the one that was the follow up to them inviting her on the show, and it's an hour long. And I did not count exactly how many times, but she did a lot of saying that people were name calling her, which I think is true. That's definitely accurate. Instead of addressing her questions. And then she proceeded to call everyone at Turning Point USA and pretty much everyone fake and gay multiple times, multiple times in there. And I just think it's like, it's an interesting thing to listen to someone say, you know, I have the moral high ground here. They're just
Yeah.
name calling and then name call this organization repeatedly. And whether you think they deserve it or not, does it further your case? I mean, it's an emotional appeal in the end, right? That's what name calling is. Like you're trying to give a certain idea of what those people are, who they are. And so, yeah, I saved some quotes and then I was like, I don't know if it's worth reading them because people kind of say you cherry pick, but I don't know if I don't agree with the fact that I have to listen to 2.5 months of hour-long episodes to get a feel for how she's handling this. Now, maybe I need to listen to all of them to understand to unravel the mystery. I don't know. But to get a feel for how she's handling it and the way she's presenting it, I don't think we need to listen to 2.5 months of her, saying stuff like that. And then to say like people are taking clips of me out of context, I'm sure that's happening. I'm sure it's happening because that's how the internet works, right? But then she played like a 10-second clip of Tim Pool and went on to like blast him for 10 minutes. And it's like, okay, well, maybe if we listen to Tim Pool for 2.5 months, an hour every day, we'd have a different idea, right? So I think it's just, I think you could argue both sides are not being, not playing on a level playing field here. Like everyone's kind of playing dirty in different ways. And so I just think us as like the viewers at home, if we're aware of that, we can have a much better idea of reality and the game that's being played here, as opposed to. So I asked on my Instagram why people were still following her, and it was interesting the responses that I got. Some of them were saying like she's the only authentic person out there. She's not doing it for money. All these influencers are posting for money, things like that. And then I listened to her episode and she has 6 ads in the episode. I mean, because you do, right? Like we all got to eat. I'm not saying she shouldn't have them, but to say that like she's not making money off of this is just crazy. Now, is that her motive? I don't know, but she can't attribute that motive to other people and say they're only
We
doing
don't
it for
turn around and
money.
ask the question back, right?
Exactly, exactly. So I just think, we can like or dislike her conclusions, but I think we do need to recognize there's a lot of hypocrisy here all
Hmm.
around.
Yeah, I said this to you, in our voice memos going back and forth. When I did my self fundraising, focus episodes and things like that, a lot of times when you're talking about the kind of dramatic things or the controversial topics that get people worked up, you if you have like a fundamental message, it can get lost in the kind of sound bites or the things you said
Mm-hmm.
that they kind of hold on to. And
Mm-hmm.
I've told everybody that I had conversations with many people at Focus or other places since then, that my core message really was about how we should view nonprofits and how we should view our giving to people who are self fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
It was more a try to be a formational episode on those who are donating, on the donors, to say you should be asking questions, like you should care about this. I don't know if you get to the end of your life and the only thing you've given to is your friend who was a missionary and you're not giving to your parish or your diocese or local charities, that's going to like count as your tithe, that's counting as generosity and those sorts of things. But it got lost in all the other kind of comments and things that I made, which is fine. I want to be very clear in my episode today, as we're going to opine and I'm going to give thoughts and opinions on all these other things. I think the most concerning thing for me this week, as I talked with many people about this topic, because many people responded on Instagram specifically. What was funny on LinkedIn, I posted about it too. It got like thousands of impressions, but very little engagement. It was like people were super interested in what everybody else was saying, but nobody wanted to
Nobody.
comment. which is so funny. Like it was my most impressions, but like one of my least engagements and like least commented on, which was like such an odd ratio. But anyways, for you friends out there, and this is mostly for the ladies. I genuinely believe, and you can disagree. This is my opinion. I'm not saying this is church teaching. I'm not making this like a dogmatic moral statement. I'm not the Pope. I think it is objectively bad for you to be listening to Candace Owens every day. I think it is absolutely not good for you. I think that if you, so many said this, I've been listening for the last year and a half, last year, last 3 months, whatever. I think that it is not, it may not, it's definitely not helping you become a better person. I think it's probable that it's making you more stressed. It's making you more anxious. It's bringing you down in some capacity. And I want to share my own testimony and journey with this. I did this for a long time for the sake of staying plugged in, for staying aware of what was going on. And if you listen to Seeking Excellence, I try to take a balanced approach when it comes to news, current events, and all those sorts of things. I stopped listening to the Daily Wire every day, specifically Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, because I started to notice, man, I'm in a bad mood. It's like all I want to talk about when I get home with my wife and kids. And I'm like frustrated when I can't like unload it all. And it's like, that's not good. I shouldn't feel this way. I want to stay informed. I feel like I'm a pretty informed citizen of the United States of America. I know the news and the things that are happening. I'm skeptical. I doubt. I question the mainstream media, the government, all these things. But you don't need an hour of that every day, especially an hour that's dedicated to the same thing. You're probably not even informed on the stuff that's actually happening, broadly speaking, in the world, because she's talking about one topic every day for an hour, a topic that you can do nothing about, a topic that it was traumatizing for most of us. I cried the day that he died. Emily and I both did. Like I literally shed tears
Yeah.
getting home, having unfortunately seen the video
Yeah.
and going to adoration on my way home from work. We were living in Ashton at the time, and like seeing my two kids, he and I were almost the exact same age. It was very moving. It was very sad, and I was moved to tears. To imagine that I would now be listening to an hour every day of somebody just accusing his organization of being involved in it, even if it's true, I don't need that an hour every day.
Mhm.
Even if it's true, and if it is true, I want to know about it. I want to know that it was true. I want to have that be brought to the light. But an hour daily about this, and somebody who's not just doing it to your point, because I think you do know that I feel passionately about this too, not just like objectively reporting it, but like mocking people throughout, calling people fake and gay, all the attitude and like all of this, like it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good for you. Do you want to weekly check in, see what her most recent thoughts on it are, what developments she has, what's the most viewed one of the week, and catch up on it? I think that that's fine
Yeah.
every day for an hour. I like my genuine, heartfelt love for you, the listener, is like this is not good for you to listen to every day. I feel extremely passionate about that. She talks like the I don't know if most people even know like the Bronze Age pervert or that's like the origination of he was like one of the originators of like people who say gay, like Ghey. Tim
Mm.
Gordon does it sometimes, but it's like the original like manosphere. This guy named Broadside Persia. I got like a crash course on this by one of my friends who used to be one of these like really popular online Twitter trolls. This friend of mine who was my most unlikely friend for my years in Denver. Like you would never have looked at the two of us and thought that we'd love each other the way that we did. He was in one of my men's groups and one night, like late at night, he's out on the street where he's giving me this crash course of like Twitter in the late 2010s and how like Nick Fuentes and all these like big names ended up coming out of kind of this like manosphere, Andrew Tate, like all these different things. But the whole like faking gay thing was like it was like one of his terms that he would use to like question things and call things out.
Mhm.
And it's like this Ghey spelling gay that way and all these different things that I see in her that she does sometimes. That she'll type that or she says these words. Oh, dinosaurs! Like that sounds pretty fake and gay. And it's like, what faithful Catholic woman do you know that talks that way? Like I'm not even trying to be like, oh, I'm holier than thou or whatever. Like I use foul language. I've stopped cursing on the podcast mostly this year. Maybe you've noticed. But I still curse. I still curse at
Yeah.
home. I'll curse, I don't curse in front of the kids, but I curse and I use words that some people would find offensive, especially like men's groups or with my friends or whatever. Like I'm not somebody who's like offended by language all the time. But if Lila Rose came on something, tomorrow, or my wife was on some podcast interview and was just like, oh, like, what's something she doubts? Like maybe she doubts the mood landing. And she's like, oh, that seems pretty fake and gay. I'd be like, Emily, what? Like, what do you publicly you're talking like one, you don't talk like that behind closed doors, but publicly you're just,
Yeah.
this is how you like portray yourself as,
Mm.
if you're going to be public about your conversion, well then you're now an example. And even if you don't,
Yeah.
I know everybody says that, oh well, she says she's working on it, she's trying, she doesn't seem to be trying that hard, because it's not that hard to stop calling things fake and gay. I mean, I'm somebody who uses language off camera in a way that I don't on camera,
Mhm.
and sometimes have in the past, in the sense of trying to be like authentic and.
Yeah.
But now I just try to be clear that like I'm not anti-cursing. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not this like perfect angel, that I never try
Sure.
to portray myself that way.
Yeah.
But you can't stop doing that. You can't stop mocking people. This story recently, this past week, the one in the episode I watched, 272, I think it was, of her, oh, Charlie, oh, he was going on a date with this girl and he sent me a picture of this shirt. And all these people on the internet rightfully calling out, what friend, if I died, if I was killed, like if one of my good friends who cared about me is telling a story about like an ex-girlfriend and another girl that I was interested in, like what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, who does that? Like, some of these things, when people say, like, that's catty behavior, that's, she seems like a woman scorned. Like,
Mhm.
some of that's true. And, like, it's okay if you're a fan or you listen to her to recognize that, like, hey, she's been doing all this stuff. She escalated in fame really quickly. She seems to have continued to pursue the more lucrative opportunities out there, over staying loyal to an organization or a person or a cause. And to think that now suddenly she like, it's unfathomable. If it's unfathomable to you, like you can't conceive of the fact that maybe she's doing it for money, then you might be like in that cult like group,
Mhm.
because that's just very clearly a plausible possibility.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it is, doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but I'm telling you that if anger is what riles up in you when you think that everybody else is doing this for money, but she's not,
Mhm.
like it's inconceivable that she would be doing it for money. You're not in a level-headed, clear space for this.
Not reality, right? Like, it's not realistic. I think you touched on something that, is important in that, well, a lot of things that are important to take a look at. But I kind of got some messages from people that essentially said method doesn't matter. If she's getting to the heart of this, I don't care if she's rough around the edges. I don't care if she says stuff like that.
Right.
Primarily, my audience is mostly Catholic women. A lot of them my age, but not all of them. Some are older moms and stuff like that. And it really shocked me, to be honest, because like as Catholics, method does matter. Like you can't like if she could get to the bottom of if you take that to its logical conclusion, if she could get to the bottom of this by let's say taking out Erica, should she do it? Well, obviously everybody says no, right? But that's the same concept of like your method actually does matter and the way that you
Right.
conduct yourself does matter. And as you say, all of these people that are in these positions that where you're in front of this many people, they have advisors and things, right? And so like just as somebody and her husband is supposedly like this super traditional Catholic. Do you think him watching that is like, great job, honey? Like you should probably say fake and gay one more time. Like it's just kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't check out for me when everyone says how authentic she feels. That doesn't feel authentic to me. Unless that really is how she is and if it is, I I don't know. I think there's like almost too much focus on authenticity because Jesus calls us away from a lot of things that we authentically want to do, right? Like I might really have an authentic desire to do a thing that Jesus does not call us to do. He oftentimes calls us away from being how we naturally are or things we're naturally drawn towards. So that doesn't like hold the same weight to me that it does for some people. It seems like, I mean, we should all be calling each other higher. This isn't like a Candace Owens thing. I'm struggling with a lot of commentators. Like you said, like I used to listen to Ben Shapiro religiously. I mean, like every day. And it was like,
Mhm.
and I was so involved with everything he cared about. And then I realized there were all these things over here that he just didn't talk about. And so I didn't care about them because I didn't even know they existed. And so we just have to be super, super careful who we hitch our wagon to. And it seems like that caution has just sort of been thrown out. And I would actually say this is just my opinion, but I think COVID like broke a lot of people, maybe including me in some ways, to where we just don't trust anybody anymore, which is like
Right.
not a good way to live either. But somebody compared this investigation to like asking questions during COVID, and I think comparing apples to oranges. I don't think they're the same thing. But I will say this, COVID, we had to make a lot of like personal decisions, like with the information we're given, right? Are we going to wear masks? Are we going to get this shot? Are we going to lose our job? Like we had to make those like decisions in our everyday life. This investigation's a little bit different. Let's say she gets to the bottom of it and it is the king of Egypt or whatever, you know, whoever she thinks it is, or it was TPUSA. What personal decisions do we have to make, like in our daily life, like me as a mom of two little kids? You know, what decision does that change for me? Now, some people think like just everyone knowing or talking about it makes a difference, and maybe it does. I could be wrong. But to me, like you said, like spending this much time, and somebody called me out on this a long time ago, and they were right. I spent way, way more time on the news than I did reading the Bible, going to the sacraments, all those things. And it is a disordered attachment. It is. And I've had it. So I can tell you that I know exactly what it feels like. And you
Right.
feel plugged in. You feel in the know. You feel like you're a part of this thing. In the end, they'll chew you up and spit you out like everything else. The only thing that will not is your faith. Now, does that mean we just like ignore all of it? No, I don't think so. But it's interesting listening to, this is not just her, this is a lot of people. So I'll say this, I like Matt Walsh. He had this whole thing about like his sweet baby gang, which were like his listeners. I
Yeah.
don't know if you like heard that whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
um but that is like a way, right, of like attaching you to him. That is a way of like making this like we're in this group, right? And so I think she does that very well with the way that she frames everything of our investigation, our questions. The whole world is asking these questions. Like she makes you feel like you're a part of this investigation when the reality is like most of us are not. I mean, let's just be honest. Like I'm not going to have an impact on what happens here. It doesn't mean you check out, but I do just want to make the distinction that's different than the COVID situation because we did have to make decisions for our families based on that information.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to kind of make that distinction because I got a lot of pushback on that of like, well, you wanted to ask questions about this, but not that. And I, like I said, I think we've both been very clear. We think questions should be asked. We just don't think she's going about it the correct way or even an effective way. Like I honestly don't think it's effective. But I also think writing her off completely like people are doing is not smart because she does have a huge listenership. Um and so I don't think writing her off is a smart way to go about it either, or saying she's crazy. I don't think that's like helpful to your side either.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly right, and I do. That's what I think I give her the biggest credit on is that it does feel like if she weren't asking questions or bringing it up or pursuing this, like I don't really feel like anybody else is. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like if for the last 2 months she hadn't been talking about it, like would we have any more information? Would it kind of just be like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're continuing on. TPUSA has all this momentum. It's great, but are we continuing to like find out more? It has been what almost 3 months now,
Hmm.
and what more information do we have? Like when is the trial, and when is all this kind of stuff going to keep happening?
Yeah.
Um, it's hard to say. And I think to your point too, like I one of my people that I listen to all the time was Jordan Peterson. And I remember her recent interview, I think it was with CNN when she got the whole like Discord messages or text messages, and it seemed like she didn't know what she was talking about.
Hmm.
Like even her in that interview, like there's times where I've seen Jordan Peterson in interviews where I'm like, man, he's handling himself so well. And
Hmm.
there, I love him in some of my favorite interviews of all time. When he did the one with Kathy, whatever her name is, this insufferable British woman, and he just absolutely crushed it. And then there's other ones where I'm like, even when he was on like Pints with Aquinas, I'm like, you seem combative, and this person's not even like fighting against you. Where you
Hmm.
almost like show up again. I recently talked about like washing feet and flipping tables. One of my favorite comments somebody says, you can't be going around looking for tables to flip. And that's how she feels sometimes. And it's
Hmm.
like she kind of has this like everybody's against me. I have to be right. And but you're also creating enemies
Hmm.
by insinuating or assuming that Ali Best Stuckey, Alex Clark, Lila Rose, all these other people don't care about what happened to him. It's like, no, we don't need to be obsessive over it and talk about it every single day. There is a way to go about doing it where you talk about it and kind of keep it alive. But I want to say one of my strongest takes, I've shared this a little bit on Instagram, is just like I think that one of the biggest things is she staked, in my opinion, the rest of how I'll view her. Like there will be no redemption for me as like a public
Hmm.
commentator. Sure, she can have redemption as a human and before God.
Sure.
If she's wrong about this, the way that she's gone about it is like she's done.
Yeah.
Like there is like she's not. This is not a oh maybe she was like a little bit off. If TPUSA is like if she like sues or if they sue her and it like blows up and melts up in court because it really comes out how much of this is not based on facts and is like loosely tied together from different things, like she's an evil person, and those of you who will like stay with her are going to be like need psychological evaluations, because I truly just believe like she's either a hero that's uncovering this, that's pushing hard, and maybe if she's 100% right, and like the new second in command at Turning Point USA made $1 billion off Charlie's death and all these different things, then I'll come back. You and I will do another live stream and we'll apologize. And maybe we'll say that, you know what, her methods were wrong, or we didn't love her methods, didn't love the way she did it, but she was a hero. She was what we needed. And, I'll become a monthly Candace Hoden supporter financially. If
It's a big
she's
commitment.
wrong,
Calm
though,
down, Nathan.
yeah, that's right. If she's wrong, she's an absolute villain. There is no way that she's going and insinuating, implying, or even just outright saying that all of his friends, TPUSA, the people that she left working with, that have devoted their life to his cause, watched him die, and very well, for all we know, may have genuinely been mourning his death, and now are having to defend themselves for being a part of it. It is horrific. It would be horrific if she's wrong. And so there is no in between in my mind. And I've even seen that most of the people who listen to her every day agree with me on that. They
Hmm.
say you're right about that. That if she's wrong on this, like
Hmm.
if she's making all these claims and statements and she doesn't have, like, her anonymous sources were BS and all these different things were not real, that she is not good. She is not a good person. And because this is one of the things I said to Emily even just a few weeks ago, is I said, well, I'm like just asking, from broadly speaking, what if she's the one that's bought and paid for? Think about the fact that, and I don't know this, but if we're allowed to just ask questions, if we're allowed to just point things out and just ask questions because skepticism is good, why don't a lot of her followers seem to have that same skepticism towards her, not only with the money, but again, I think we would have swept the midterms next year. I think we would have had incredible success politically going forward, because so many people were like, wow, they actually killed him. Like Bill Maher and other like liberals and leftists were like, this is terrible. I can't believe this is happening. We had this unity that we hadn't seen in a long, long time on the right.
Hmm.
Almost all of that is gone.
Hmm.
It's almost entirely gone.
Hmm.
And you're going to have a huge drop in support for the Trump administration and for what they're doing, and for JD Vance going forward, because you're claiming that you're submitting all this stuff to the government and bringing all this up, and nobody seems to care and they won't pursue it.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, like, this division is worth it if she's right, because this would be a huge deal if the government, his organization, Trump, any of these people were colluding to facilitate this.
Hmm.
But if she's wrong, she's the greatest enemy, I think, of the conservative movement in the last
Hmm.
quarter century, 50 years, 100 years. I don't know. A long, long time, because we had all this momentum and all of this things going in the right direction. And then she's like single handedly ending that,
Killed it.
And so I'm like, there can't
Yeah.
be much in between.
I think there's a good point in there, which one of the things she was nailing Tim Pool for is that he was saying she's going to make us lose the midterms. Now, whether or not we do, remains to be seen. But she acted like, what a silly thing to care about. But it actually, like, if we think that politics actually matter, which I do, right? That just means the affairs of the city, and those should matter because we live in those cities, right? Like we are the
Mhm.
people that those policies affect, so we should care. And so to act like it's just like so silly to care about the midterms, I think is just incorrect. Now, is that more important than someone's death? No. But this is my like other thing about her method is when you just throw those things out there, you don't reel them back in. I see comments all over the internet that Erica Kirk did it or was involved in it or whatever. Now, if she was, yikes, big yikes. Um, I do not get the feeling that Charlie was an idiot and that he married somebody who cared so much about money that she was willing to off him. Um, so I think you're kind of saying something about Charlie there too, that he was just like too stupid to, to see what was
Oh, the whole thing has to
on.
be he was dumb. he didn't
Yes,
see
pretty
any of
much.
this happening, or they say, oh, he ordered some like audit or whatever. It's like, you tell me all of his best friends, the people he raised up in this organization, the people he made successful financially, brought them into the conservative movement, all of these things, worked with for years,
Hmm.
that they were able to do all of this, be bought and paid for, and he just had no clue, no idea whatsoever.
Right. And it's just, I mean, it's why the church, the Bible, the saints, they caution you on what you say, right? Like you will answer for every word. And the reason is words take on a life of their own. And we live in like such an age where everybody just throws every thought out there, and I'm guilty. Um, those words have legs, right? They take off, and then people take them to mean this or take them to mean that. And I think that we forget that people with a platform have a responsibility to the people who are watching them, right? Teachers will be held more responsible, and we're like assigning
Yep.
ourselves the role of teachers these days. Again, guilty. Um, and we need to take that seriously. And if she really has as many people watching her as the numbers show, and as she thinks she does, um, take that pretty darn seriously. I don't know. I would be very cautious about, and that's been one of my questions from the beginning of, is there another investigation going on? We really don't know. Like, could Erica be doing an investigation behind the scenes that she doesn't feel the need to live stream? It's possible. We actually don't know if she's like, she would have the money to do it if she wanted to do an investigation. And like when I've kind of floated that idea, people that like Candace are like, well, why would she need to hide it? Well, sometimes investigations work better when everybody doesn't know they're going on, you
Right.
know? So I mean, I think there are legitimate reasons for that. Now, is she doing it? I really don't know. Like maybe she's like, yeah, the FBI's right. And that's her, prerogative to do. But I think a lot of the ideas that people seem to have, like Candace is the only one investigating it, that like Candace was his best friend, those ideas come from Candace. Like she's the
Right.
one saying those things.
She's the
Now,
source.
yeah, and like, could they be accurate? Sure. And then yesterday, TPUSA did say like Charlie always considered Candace a friend. Now, like a best friend, I don't know. Like what does a friend mean? And maybe they're trying to throw her a bone here. I don't really know. People say a lot of things, but I just think we can't like ignore the fact that she has a huge responsibility here for the stuff she's throwing out there. I mean, I think we're losing sight of the fact that she's quite literally accusing people of being involved in a murder. Like that's a very serious accusation. And I
Right.
don't know. I could be I'm not really I haven't decided on this, I guess. I don't know if it's moral to do that, to throw that out to that many people without actually knowing. And one of her taglines is, I don't know, but I know. You better have more than that. Like, I mean, that's the way I see it. Like, you better have more evidence than I don't know, but I know. If you're going to accuse somebody of being involved in a murder, especially, for money. So I don't know. I'm not, my analysis of this is not like, oh, TPUSA's hands are clean. Every organization has stuff, and maybe it's really serious stuff, and maybe we'll find out. But I think no matter what the result is, I'm going to stand by the fact that the method is not the way that it should be. And then just to say like midterms don't matter, and she encouraged people not to vote, this last go round. I just think that it's a losing strategy always. And it's a losing strategy for us common people, right? Because the
Hmm.
people that tend to listen to her would be the conservative voters. So who's getting screwed? Like the conservatives in general on this crusade. So I don't know. I don't see her as like this. As she said, I'm asking questions the whole world wants to know. And I don't know if you saw the latest that her plan now is to live stream the live stream. Did you
Right.
see that? Yeah.
I have seen that. Yes.
Yes. And then she said the public decided that. And then it's just sort of interesting to even see in her comments like who's the public. And some of them were even her fans saying, wait a second, like we had nobody asked us, we've been along for this ride, but this doesn't seem like the way to do it. So it just sort of seems like she just throws out these claims, and then she said multiple times in a couple of the episodes, like, does that pass the vibe check? Like, okay, well, if you're going off vibes, we can go off vibes, right? Like, so what are we going off of here? I don't know. I genuinely am concerned for the fact that you're throwing out extremely serious allegations that you cannot reel back in. You cannot clean up that mess once you've thrown them out there. We've all done it, right? We've all said stuff that you're like, dang, wish I could take that back. Like that one's not going back in my mouth. And now, it's
For
going to have
sure.
effects for however long. Um, and so, and I think she's putting herself in a position where she has an hour show every day. You open yourself up to saying dumb things because you say a lot of things, right? Anybody who's on a lot of interviews, like you said, Jordan Peterson, he's going to have some interviews where you're like, what the heck? So you do open yourself up to that. But when you present yourself as the arbiter of truth and the arbiter of the people and the arbiter of asking questions, you better be on it. Like you better be right. So I don't know. I
Right.
kind of where I fall on that, I guess.
I love it. I appreciate you wrapping that up so nicely there. I want to let you know. Yeah, I know you said you had about an hour, so if you need to drop, feel free to go. I have a few other things I want to hit on, but so
Yeah.
yeah, so don't let me.
I have a few more minutes. My kids are at the library with grandma and grandpa, so they're not back yet. So when you start to hear little squeals, that's when I'll have to go. So
Okay, great. Yeah, well, feel free to drop if you ever need
okay,
to.
thanks.
But yeah, I think so. I want to get into my next thing I wanted to talk about is specifically just evaluating how she's talking about these things. And so, admittedly, I came into the week when I started talking about a post about it, trying to get a feel for people's stances. I said I haven't listened to anything in full. I've only seen clips. I've seen clips from people who are defending her, clips from people who say that she's crazy. And so I was like, let me watch a couple episodes myself and get a feel for it. I'm 100% in alignment with you, Bridget, when people say you have to watch all 60 days. If that's true, I'm never going to do it. And you can just think that I'm unfair.
Yeah,
There's no chance I'm going back and listening to 45 hours of her talking about this, especially given the couple hours that I have listened to and uh, how insufficient I found it. And so one of the things that for me it was pretty mind blowing out there for people listening to this, just to be genuine and transparent with you. Um, Going back a little bit, one of my favorite things I think about my time in college, I always kind of attribute that as like my huge time of conversion in my life. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I studied criminal justice and philosophy in college. And what I say that I kind of left with, because I never became a police officer and I'm not necessarily a philosopher, is I say that those two things taught me to think critically and to think deeply. And so thinking deeply philosophically is, I think, where I go deeper into things like feminism, obviously theology, philosophy. What's the best way to live? What's the meaning of life? What does it mean to be a good father? All these kind of deeper questions. Thinking critically is when I evaluate somebody making an argument and say, like, are they using logic or emotion? Is this facts? Are facts building upon each other to actually build a strong case here? I had a lot of people who said, listen to episode 272, listen to the one she did yesterday. And so I go and listen to it in full. And like, I mean, I was paying attention. Like, I was not doing other things. I was not listening to it while I was working. Like, I was listening to the episode,
mm-hmm.
taking screenshots of like places I wanted to go back and revisit, which I might do here today. I was legitimately just mind blown to finish to the end of that. And I didn't count the number of times. I'd love to go back and count how many times it seemed like this is based on a dream. This is based on a vision. To your point, I screenshotted another point of the episode that she did. I think it was just a day ago about, does that pass the vibe check? Does that pass the vibe check to you? Feelings, intuitions, just like, I don't know, this seems fishy. I'm just asking questions. Team, I literally, the structure of the episode was legitimately going back into how the founder of the FBI was Napoleon Bonaparte's like grandnephew, which was interesting. I never knew that. I never knew it was a Bonaparte that founded the FBI. That's good, interesting stuff. It is kind of suspicious. I told everybody who asked me about it, I'm like, I think France is like one of the seats of evil in this world. I literally believe that. I think that them, like North Korea, I think of the places where the devil has a stronghold. I think France is one of them. I think they've been that way since the French Revolution. They
Mm-hmm.
have like that from France has outgrown some horrific things. I feel like it's almost like the counter Rome that France and Germany, in the last 300 years in Europe. I'm all for it. You want to tell me that like there's some weird things happening, that like Israel has too much power, all these things, all for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Foreign governments are interfering with us. We're interfering with foreign governments. I'm all for it. But the kind of like facts mixed with feelings and emotions is where it got really interesting and I think really manipulative. So she kind of builds on this, like, I didn't know this. I didn't know that Napoleon Bonaparte, and going through the DuPont family and going through Delaware and how, but it was wild to me between French and French infiltration and influence in America and the FBI, and then Egyptian planes, There's always Jewish donors that are involved because that's kind of part of it too. Where I really struggle, and maybe it's because I haven't had the 46 hours and I need one of her fans to come on. And if somebody is super educated and wants to come on, I'm sure I can't get her to talk with us. But if anybody knows a lot and wants to come on and correct me, I'm happy to hear it. Where these French legionnaires and donors and people in Delaware and the Egyptian planes and the Jewish donors come together to like overtake Turning Point USA with no knowledge of Charlie or Erica Kirk is where I am just like utterly lost. And where it seems to me to be this, but the dreams, and I had these dreams, and people tell me I'm crazy, but I had this vision. Charlie came to me in a dream. Team, dreams don't hold up in court. And I think to your point, Bridget, that we these are massive allegations, massive accusations that you're making to say that all these people who knew him and loved him, and maybe they were involved in it. But when you come out and say it, you don't, they don't do that. The police don't do that. If I get murdered, if I was killed and even killed in my home, like they don't just come arrest the wife with nothing, right? Just like, oh, she. I think we're just asking questions. Like
Yeah.
they know that that's like a pretty traumatic thing to come and say, like, oh, like who is his best friend? Like, let's go ask them. His coworkers, the guy that I work with one of my best friends from high school to be like, I think he was involved. Like,
Mhm.
hopefully, you have some pretty strong evidence you're going to come and bring to him because he'd be in some pretty intense mourning. But I mean, it was just like, and even the tips, anonymous tips, we got a tip to our inbox. And even listening to the one from last night, it's like she's going through and she pulls up this timeline and it's just like a Word doc.
Mhm.
It's literally just a
I know.
Word document.
I
And
know.
I'm like, this is what we're going off as our thing is just her
Yeah.
Word doc. It's
Yeah.
like that is just absolutely mind blowing to me that this is what people are looking at and they're saying like, oh yeah, this is like substantial.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I also am confused, I guess. I really, in a way,
Let's see if this will
I
share.
think that people are want to belong to like something really badly. Like um like feel like they're a part of this investigation in some way because I think people want to do something, right? Like and we do feel like it's been brushed under the rug or it's not. But you can't put aside like all of your critical thinking skills just because you want us to be able to do something. Like that does not it doesn't equate, right? We're still not going to get to the bottom of it with her Word doc. And I don't know. Yeah. She made the comment on her latest one that upwards of 95% of murders are committed by people that know the people, which makes sense, right? And that is typically because they're like commoners like you and me, right? But Charlie Kirk is not a commoner. Like there were a lot of
Right.
he's very high profile. You can't you can't project like what would normally happen in a normal murder onto his situation. Now, I'm not saying she's wrong. It's certainly probably there was probably somebody involved with him that knew something that they should have shared or whatever. That's likely because usually the stuff isn't as secret as it seems. But to say like that because 95% of murders are committed by people who know you means his was again
Right.
that's not to me it's apples and oranges. He was not a normal everyday run of the mill person. He was very, a worldwide figure. So I don't think you can apply that same theory to him. So yeah, I don't know. I agree with you that I'm not getting the facts from what I've listened to, and I did listen to her most of the week. But again, yeah, same here. I'm not going to go back and listen to all of them, so maybe that will just discount our opinions. I don't know, but it seems like we should be able to. I would say the same with the people who are like hate Ben Shapiro. Um, you can never go back and listen to every Ben Shapiro episode. Do you need to
Right.
form your
Same thing
opinion
with
of Ben
Charlie Kirk.
Shapiro?
Charlie Kirk's even
Yeah,
better, closer example. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and so like, do you have to form your opinion based on every word they said? Um, I don't think that's a realistic ask for people.
Especially to get the feel. That's what I think is like, especially, you go back to like the delivery or things like that, or even just not even just the feel, but the strategy, the approach, the investigative approach. Like I always tell people, I'm like, if you listen, I want people to listen to 15 minutes of Charlie Kirk. These people who called him racist or hated him, like, don't do the 30 seconds. Don't read a sentence, a paragraph in a news journal that is, taking 3 to 5 words at a time. Like, just
Mhm.
watch 10 minutes of that exchange. The one that you're claiming is racist, watch 10 minutes of it. See if it's actually racist. Watch him for an hour and see how he interacts with people and if he was so hateful and all these things as you. If we're watching 3 hours of her and we're like, hey, almost every time she brings up her next major point, there's like, I don't know, but could be, or it came to me in a dream, or it doesn't pass the vibe check. Every major point, and you realize as an objective observer, like you have to be bought into just believing things that she just says with no evidence in order to really be bought in on this.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty substantial. Like, that's not nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was, so for another example, she made the comment that she was talking about the Egyptian planes and how it couldn't have been the Egyptian president that was there because he was photographed in Tanzania that same week. Now, I she could certainly be right about that, but let's talk about how we live in the age of AI. How in the world do we know anything really? Like, do we know that those pictures are real of him in Tanzania? I mean, there's all these videos out there of Pope Leo saying things he doesn't say and they look like real life.
Pretty real. Yeah.
So even that, I mean, I understand that she's really like providing evidence in that case, but even in that case, we just, I don't know. I just think we have to be super careful because who says that he really was there? I don't know. I don't. So like even things where she is supposedly providing evidence are tough for me to get behind, especially when the majority of it is, like you said, I mean, came to her in a dream is very interesting. And I think intuition is a real thing. I don't want to like discount that. And I think especially like moms get super offended when people comment on intuition because we think it's guided us pretty well in a lot of things. And I think that that intuition is God given and it has a purpose and that we should not ignore it. But also, you have to apply facts to that and you have to apply reality to that. And so, like, let's and our intuition, I would venture to say, is geared towards certain things. Like I would say my intuition with my children is very high, but maybe my intuition in a murder mystery is not. Like I think we can make that distinction of like we may have a very good intuition with certain things, but like God gave us that intuition because we are supposed to raise our children. Maybe he didn't give us the intuition to
Right.
like know how to solve this who done it. So I don't know. I think there's a little bit of pride wrapped up in a lot of this of like the I don't know but I know to me is a very prideful statement
Yeah.
because you don't actually have evidence to back it up, but because you
You're
you know.
human like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
one of my things with, I think, in conspiracies in general, people who push back against conspiracy theories, and we all, I think you and I probably believe in certain conspiracy theories. I know I do.
Yeah.
The the thing that is always one of the biggest hurdles to overcome when a conspiracy is happening is the number of people who have to be silent that know about it.
Mhm.
And that I think can't be underestimated. Like if you're saying that all these people there, like nobody at the organization would have come across this and like forwarded it to Erica, forwarded it to Charlie, like just the amount, and then thinking that it's going into all these different governments and like our government knew about it. Like that's where sometimes I think people just don't understand the scale of how much secrecy you have and know, to be operating with that. The other thing is, I think that really bothers me is either the grieving or the response in the midst of violence. That seemed to be like the number one thing is like, oh, you don't think Erica's acting weird? It's like, yeah, her husband died. And she might just be a weird and awkward person.
Yeah.
Like that's a very real possibility. That's kind of what I take, because a lot of like old videos of them have like surfaced, and like what Emily and I have talked about is I'm like, I feel like she, like, people are like, oh, she's like cringy and odd. I'm like, I go back and watch some of these old videos of them when she was alive. She
Like
seemed cringy and odd. Like
yeah.
it's just, like I
Yeah.
like when she's doing her eulogy or other things and she just calls, Charlie baby all the time. Like I don't like that. Like to
Yeah.
me, like it feels weird.
Yeah.
But that's how she was when she's telling
Yeah.
stories about them and they're doing podcasts together. Like she was
Uh-huh.
odd. The other
Yeah.
thing is, everybody's a freak. Everybody thinks that when they're not in violence. And this comes to me, somebody from the army, is you think when like bullets are flying, or like when like you're gonna be this like SWAT team member, or like you're gonna be some war hero in a movie and like explosion happens behind you and you don't move.
Mhm.
We saw that. I think one of the clearest examples of this is like when John F. Kennedy was murdered. Like Jackie's like trying to like put his head back together. Like when things like that happen so jarring and out of nowhere to somebody you love, like your response is purely like animalistic. Like
Mhm.
there is no, you just do the next thing. There is not the ability to go back and be like, oh, I logically thought about the camera or moving the body or whatever. Like, to think that you're going to evaluate moment by moment what somebody chose to do in the wake of this, of their
Yeah.
friend like bleeding to death from a gunshot wound, is, to me, just like, that's, if that's like a solid basis for one of the things, like, people are like, oh, like all these weird things happened afterwards. And even to think, even if you think that he was trained to say like, oh, it showed another angle that they didn't want to capture, you think that in the midst of that actually happening, in the chaos of that, like, this random nerd is just trained to be like, oh, that's what I need to go do.
Hmm.
Like, this is my role here, is like, oh, this is what I that I'm gonna, yeah, bullets are flying, people are
Yeah.
screaming, like, this is my thing. Like, do you know how much that has to be like trained and rehearsed to know what to do when somebody that even just, think about the person you hate the most, like the most annoying person you work with, like, you would say like your childhood enemy. If you were
Hmm.
in a room with them and you knew it was going to happen and they got shot, you would still be like you would not
Yeah.
just like smoothly go do something. Like, I'm just
Correct.
like, you guys we give people almost too much credit sometimes,
Hmm.
like thinking that they're just going to be like calm under pressure and just like so okay with this. It's just, it's mind blowing to me,
I think giving
to
people
think that that's
too much credit is a good point, and I think that also ties into like what you're saying about conspiracies, that we think like it's all tied together and every government's working together, and in certain ways they are, right? But um I think we almost want to think there's like a puppet master pulling all these strings, because if not, then like we have idiots like leading a lot of very important positions.
right,
But the reality is we probably just do have idiots leading a lot of like really important positions.
right,
Like that's, think about like, I don't know, I think about myself
very
like,
likely,
yeah, yeah, very, very likely. I think about myself like, if, even in certain positions that I've been in, or like if you go through something that kind of puts you in shock. And I don't know if everybody has been in that situation, but I think a lot of people maybe have. I don't want to use the word trauma because it's like overused, but when there's been things happen in your life that truly were shocking to the point where like you are not functioning properly. Um, and I would say I've been through one or two of those things. You don't know, and people will tell you what you should have done and how you should have reacted to those
right,
things. And I honestly don't remember some of those situations. Like I could not even tell you exactly what happened, because you just check out. And some of that is like you're mentally protecting yourself, right? Humans aren't meant to deal with this kind of stuff. You're talking about the army, like humans are not meant to see the things that people in the military often see. And you go into some sort of protective mode because of that. And so yeah, for that to be like evidence, especially if they're people who are close to him, I don't know. I just a lot of this seems to just be built, like a lot of the whole entire controversy on all the sides just seems to be built on like um what we think should have happened, and like
yeah,
what how do we know what should have happened, or how this should have gone, or what plane should be where, or whatever. I just think we're kind of like we're overstating our own importance in this whole in this whole situation, I think. um I don't know, but I do think
100%,
that you make a great point that it's really easy to look back. I mean, I would say this even about history, right? We look back on things that we would consider immoral, like dropping the atomic bomb. I agree with that. It was immoral. We can look back now and have a much clearer picture of that. Then at the time, there were probably a lot of people that were in favor of that and maybe didn't have all the information that we have now. Hindsight's always 2020. And so I think it's
hmm,
just unfair. And now hindsight is like 2 days ago, right? Because of the way social media works. Whereas previously it took a long time to get to these conclusions. Now it's like, okay, we've got all the video. It's been 2 days. I know exactly what you should have done. You messed up. And that goes for everybody.
right,
Um, so that's tough. I don't know. I think again, we're not operating within the reality that we are in, and we're treating investigations and things like they maybe used to be treated in the real world, and online does not work the same way, and I don't think we're working within that understanding with this. So
one of my closing takes, Bridget. One of the things that only I can say, and I think you know what I'm referring to now, is I think that I want to tell a story. Actually, this has happened to me throughout my life, but I want to tell, there's a specific story that keeps coming to mind as I think about this theory. is I remember, I won't say what organization because some people who listen to this will probably know who this person is. I can't even remember her name, but I know Emily will know who I'm talking about. I went on an interview weekend with a Catholic organization one time when I was getting out of the army. And there was a specific Hispanic girl who was there, and she was very aggressive, very like loud, and I felt like kind of rude to people, and kind of had like a really like, to me, just like a lot of attitude. You know, kind of the like stereotypical. You know, a lot of people. You know, again, this is why I'm saying these things. 'Cause I think most white people feel like they can't. But we know, I think the world knows that we typically think, especially out there in the world, um, it's known for certain Black women, Hispanic women are known to have a certain like attitude about them and a confidence to them. You know, the Black Queen stuff, and it happens a lot. It's not even just Black women. I think Black men sometimes have this confidence of like, you know, there's the famous, the reel was going famous about like a Black excellence T-shirt, and it was a Black judge. It was like, you have how many kids under the age of 4? And it was like 7 kids under the age of 3 or 4. And he was like, that's not Black excellence. This Black
Yeah.
judge like correcting this Black guy. But there's like this, there's just a confidence there. And sometimes an attitude that can be very present amongst whether it's Black or Hispanics, women specifically, that you see in certain white women too, where they, you know, try to take on that kind of culture or attitude. It's not impossible. And it's not to say white women are perfect or flawless. I also have a budding theory that I think white women are both the best and the worst, which maybe I'll share after this. I think you'll
I
appreciate
can't
and probably
wait.
agree with. But everybody has their problems. Men and women,
Sure.
Black women, white women, all those things. There's my disclaimers. This girl had the classic stereotypical Hispanic attitude, and nobody would correct her. Nobody was willing to say anything to her, and it drove me nuts. And I knew from growing up and seeing this, because I had a diverse school that I went to, and it was like when Black girls would just be wild or be hitting people or just like out of line, it was like the white people for the last like 40 years have been conditioned to never correct a Black person. It's kind of similar to like how a lot of men felt with like the believe all women for a while. It was like you can't question or doubt anything any woman says. That's how I feel like a lot of white people feel when it comes to any person of color, but specifically I feel like it's like Black women. You know, you get held up. The Michelle Obama, it's like she's speaking gospel truth every time she opens her mouth, and you can't question or doubt anything that they say or do.
Mhm.
I believe that that is part of what's happening with uh, Candace. Because just like when I was on this interview weekend and I see this, and I remember getting in a huge fight with this girl. She hated me from that point on, still probably does. She's a very, very liberal Catholic, and nobody would ever question or argue with her. And I'm like, none of you agree with the thing she's saying. None of you believe this, but you're just like, not, you know, don't want to rock the boat, don't want to, you know, piss her off. And I'm like, I'm willing to, because my whole life I was raised. The people who made fun of me most of the time, the ones that were like, "Oh, you're not Black enough, you're not this, that," it was mostly Black women growing up that were pushing that on me. Black guys, you know, they give you a hard time or whatever, but it was always the Black women who or Black girls that were doing a lot of this. So I had my fair share of arguments and pushback at things, and was raised around a lot of Black women because I'm half Black, you know, so half my family. So I was like, I'm willing to argue. I don't mind pissing her off. I don't mind if she's mad at me. Like I was just like kind of invincible to it. And I just think there's like a certain, I call it the Black girl magic. That is just if you say something confidently and you have your attitude, I'm like, Candace exhibits that exact same behavior. And the
Mhm.
same way that these liberal white women cling to a lot of Black women, like a Jasmine Crockett's a great example. She's an
Mhm.
idiot. Like she makes no sense whenever she speaks. Think about AOC, right? There's no logic. Logic has left the chat, but she's brown. She's cute, you know, and she's cool and kind of edgy and does her own thing, and she's confident. And so, boom, she should be the next president. You have people who believe that they're like, she would make a good president. She should serve.
Mm.
And I think that Candace is extremely intelligent. I think she's very articulate, but I think the attitude, a lot of the demeanor and stuff that we're talking about is that same attitude
Mhm.
that we don't love out there in the world, that you see when you see somebody arguing with somebody. It's like, you're not being logical. You're not being rational. You're just being loud. You're
Mhm.
just being confident. You're just being
Yeah.
aggressive in the way that you're saying these things. It's an interesting mix of that and going back to like the Bronze Age pervert manosphere, kind of like faking gay language. It's this weird combination of those two things that I think gets a lot of women just like bought into it. It's specifically white women that just get really, really bought into this. Like, oh, I can't argue with her. And then you mix in this like true crime obsession that so many women have as well, of like, oh, like who done it, like who murdered, the
Mhm.
husband was murdered, the wife was murdered, and you're trying to get to the bottom of it. It's just a lot of things that I think that psychologically get women really bought into emotionally.
Mhm.
And that's like one of my theories about I mean, there was a couple of guys here and there that I have not come across. I'm not saying this like I haven't looked at thousands, but the hundreds, and then like the messages for me, the dozens, 50, 60, the people who are adamantly supporting, I mean, 99% women.
Yeah.
98% white women. Like it is literally the crowd. Like that's one of the guys in this like trad group chat that I'm in with a bunch of guys. He was like, I feel like she's found her financial niche amongst white women. Like that is what she's found in the course of doing all these different things. And I don't think that totally discredits her. It doesn't mean that she's wrong. It doesn't discredit
Yeah.
anything that we've said before this. But I just truly, closing with the same challenge or belief that I say at the beginning, like take a week off of this stuff,
Mhm.
like unplug for a little bit, like
Yeah.
listen to something good for some time. Get back to Father Micah Bishop Barron and Jeff Cavins, and just like enter
Yeah.
into Advent without being obsessed and following this woman who clearly is, yeah, not this like saintly figure who deserves an hour of your day each and every day.
Mhm.
Um, even if she's right, even if she's asking good questions, we still have to like contain that within logic and recognize that if you just are constantly skeptical and asking questions, like you're gonna go insane.
Mhm.
Like if you don't think anything is true, like to think that we can just like endlessly ask questions and be skeptical and assign blame to people based on loose historical data and who was the grandnephew of Napoleon Bonaparte and this DuPont family in Delaware and all these things, and somebody taking a phone call from a donor,
Mhm.
um, and just tying that all together with no real like connections and evidence between it,
Mhm.
it's not good, and it's affecting your life in a bad way, and you got to be careful with the black girl magic. I really
I
believe that that's
I will now put that on my list. Be careful of the black girl magic. No, I think we've probably both seen it, or I've seen it, that people get into these theories and go way off, off the rails, or even like get paranoid. I mean, I've seen it in my personal life. Like people get this truly affects their life, and I do think what you're saying. You gotta take a step back, ground yourself in reality, ground yourself in your faith, and then dive back in every now and then if you want to. But for this to be your purpose or your obsession, like I do not think that 90% of the people who are probably listening, that this is your calling to like fight this battle. Now maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind
I think
of
you made
where
a
I
great point
fall.
earlier with what personal decisions are you going to be making as a result of this?
Hmm.
And not everything should be that. Again, we believe in being informed, but yeah, are you even informed on other things? She's not talking about anything else. It's not like a broad news show. Like I like one of my favorite things about PBD is he's going to cover a number of different topics, and I can
Yes.
see and get in there and say, okay, he's going to talk about things that's happening like internationally. He's going to talk about finance and what's going on in the economy. He's going to talk about this Candace and TPUSA drama. But it's
Hmm.
not just that. It's not just this one thing. That's not being informed. This is a true crime podcast you're listening to every day that's based on a true story that
Hmm.
is important and has a big impact. But it's still like if you were listening, if I just met a Catholic woman and she's like, yeah, every night for an hour, I watch a true crime show on Netflix. It's like, that's probably not a great use of your time.
Yeah.
Probably not
Yeah.
good for you to just be learning about murder and killing
Yeah.
every day. Like you're not meant to hear any of that probably, but every
Yeah.
day for an hour
I
and
mean,
focus on that.
exorcists say that, right? They say don't get too
Right.
involved in listening to these stories. Like you need to know it's out there. You need to know there's evil. You need to know how to avoid it. But like, don't make this your personality. Like, don't make
Right.
exorcism stories your whole personality. So I think it is, just a word of caution. And I don't think either of us are here to say like again that she's for sure wrong. But I think both of us maybe are more worried about the people who are listening to her than what she's saying, because I think people are just so bought in that it's concerning to me.
That's right. 100%. And so we didn't go through like the clips and things like that, which I might do another episode and just kind of dive into actually reacting to some of the stuff and really trying to show people what I mean when
Yeah.
like, I'm not making it up. Like I screenshot the specific points where it's like, okay, she's building up, and then it's a vibe. You know,
Yeah.
she's building up and tying in this other story or whatever. So I want to get into that. But that is all for today. Thank you, Bridget. As always, it's an honor and a privilege and a gift to get to spend some time with you discussing a topic.
If only everyone felt that way, Nathan. I don't know why they don't, but
That's right. Well, I'm happy to be one of
no,
them that
thanks.
does.
Thank you for
Uh,
having. I always enjoy this, and this is like my favorite kind of things to talk about. So it was fun.
I love it. Very good. Well, thank you again. And thank you everybody for listening, especially for those who listened all the way through, even if it frustrated you from the beginning. We believe that questions need to be asked. We hope that the truth comes out and believe that it will come out. We know that all truth will be revealed in the end of the world, in the end of time. But that it's generally not good for you to be listening to this, immersed in this every day, and that's more important than all of it. Is to be focused on your holiness this Advent season, and be focused on your spiritual life and planning your next year, and hope and optimism and dreams for the future, while being informed and aware of the things and the evil that is present in our world. So, know of our prayers for all of you. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.